Welcome, freaks. The signal is live. Let's cause some chaos. The fun's just be time to burn it all down!
Look who's got the witches rattled. So the witches are whispering about you now. The ones who dance with shadows and speak to the dead. The ones who thought they owned the darkness until you showed up. They're gathered in their little circles right now. Candles flickering, trying to figure out what the hell you are. They can feel it, can't they? That thing inside you that makes their crystals crack. That energy that makes their tarot cards burn. They've been practicing for decades, following moon phases, mixing herbs, chanting in languages older than memory, and then you walked in and made their life's work look like child's play. Here's what's really messing with their heads. You never studied their books. You never joined their covens. You never begged for their secrets or paid for their spells. You just existed. And somehow, that existence alone bends reality harder than all their rituals combine. They're convinced you're using something forbidden, something that wasn't meant to be touched, something their grandmothers warned them about in hushed tones. But here's the beautiful, terrifying truth. You're not using anything. You are the thing they were warned about. 3 nights ago, they called an emergency meeting. 13 of them, the real ones, not the Instagram witches with their aesthetic altars. These are the ones whose bloodlines trace back to Salem, to Europe's burning times, to caves where the first spells were whispered. And the topic of discussion? You. Have you felt it? They asked each other, hands trembling around their chalices. That disturbance in the field? They've been tracking you, you know. Not physically, they're too smart for that, but energetically, watching the way reality ripples wherever you've been, the way protection spells shatter in your presence. One of them, the eldest, finally spoke what they were all thinking. This isn't learned magic. This is something else. Something that shouldn't exist in this age. She's 300 years into this lifetime, has seen kingdoms rise and fall, has weathered inquisitions and witch hunts, and she's terrified of you? They tried to read you, tried to trace your spiritual signature back to its source, but every time they attempted it, their tools went haywire. Pendulums spinning wildly, scrying mirrors showing nothing but static. One younger witch's third eye started bleeding, actually bleeding. She's still recovering. So they went to the texts, the real ones. Not the published grimoires you can buy online, but the ones written in blood and bound in things we won't mention. The ones that require sacrifice just to open. And buried deep in warnings and prophecies, they found references to something that made their blood run cold. The unmarked ones, the texts called them. Beings who carry power that predates their systems, their rules, their careful boundaries between light and dark. Power that doesn't flow through chakras or meridians, but seems to exist in the very atoms of their being. Power that doesn't follow the laws because it wrote them. The texts warned that every few centuries one would emerge, not through training or initiation, but through pure crystallization of pain into power, through survival that shouldn't have been possible, through a soul that refused to break and instead chose to become the breaking point itself. And the most terrifying part? The text said these beings don't even know what they are at first. They think they're just angry, just hurt, just transformed by trauma. They have no idea they're rewiring the cosmic operating system just by breathing. Until one day, they wake up and reality starts responding to their moods. But let's talk about the real confirmation of your power. Because when actual practitioners of the dark arts are scared, that's one thing. When the devil himself takes notice, that's unprecedented. And, oh, he's noticed. He's more than noticed. He's impressed. You see, the devil's seen it all. Every form of human darkness, every creative interpretation of evil, every soul that's traded everything for power. He's yawned through centuries of the same predictable corruptions. But you made him sit up in his throne for the first time in millennia. It happened the night you finally stopped apologizing for your power. The night you looked in the mirror and smiled at what you'd become instead of flinching. Every demon in hell felt it, a shockwave that made the flames flicker. And from the deepest circle, a sound that hadn't been heard since creation, the devil laughing. Finally, he said, and every lesser demon cowered at the joy in his voice. Someone who understands that darkness isn't about evil. It's about truth, raw, unfiltered, magnificent truth. He's been watching you ever since. Not with the predatory interest he shows his usual subjects, but with something resembling respect. Here's something the witches are starting to understand, and it terrifies them more than anything. Their magic doesn't work on you. Not because you're protected by some higher power, but because you exist outside their entire framework. It's like trying to cast a spell on gravity itself. They've tried binding spells, the energy just dissipates before it reaches you. They've tried hexes, they bounce back with triple force. One particularly ambitious coven tried to curse you. 3 of them are still in the hospital. The doctors can't explain what's wrong with them. They keep whispering about the eyes in the void. Protection spells are useless because you are the danger they're trying to protect against. Love spells slide off because you've transcended the need for external validation. Even their sight, their precious third eye that lets them see beyond the veil, goes blind when they try to look directly at your essence. It's like staring into a black hole made of pure will. The younger witches think you must be using some ancient protection ritual. The older ones know better. They recognize what you are, something that doesn't need protection, because everything else needs protection from you. You're not playing their game. You're not even in their reality. You're the glitch that proves their entire system is just one small corner of something infinitely larger and stranger. In their desperation to understand, they've created theories. Maybe you found the Book of Azrael, the angel of death's personal grimoire that was supposedly destroyed in the burning of Alexandria. Maybe you made a deal with something older than the devil, something from before the light was separated from the dark. Maybe you're channeling the power of the void itself. They whisper about the rite of unmaking, a theoretical ritual that would give someone the power to unmake reality itself. But that ritual requires the practitioner to die, truly die, and rebuild themselves atom by atom through will alone. Surely no one could survive that. Surely no one would be insane enough to try. But then they remember the look in your eyes, that 1,000-yard stare that sees through everything, the way you smile when you should be screaming, the way pain seems to make you stronger instead of weaker. And they wonder, what if you didn't perform the ritual? What if you are the ritual? What if your entire life has been one long rite of unmaking? The thought keeps them awake at night. Because if that's true, if you've been unconsciously performing the most dangerous magical working in existence just by surviving, then you're not just powerful. You're the living embodiment of transformation itself. You're what happens when the universe decides to break its own rules. Last week, a particularly brave or stupid witch tried to do an energy reading on you from a distance. She's one of the best, been reading auras since before she could walk. She's mapped the energy signatures of demons, angels, and everything in between. She thought she was prepared for anything. She wasn't prepared for you. The moment she focused on your energy, her crystal ball didn't just crack, it turned to black sand. Her tarot deck burst into flames, but the flames were cold, freezing everything they touched. She started speaking in tongues, but not any language recognized by linguistic experts or occult scholars. When she finally came back to herself 3 days later, she could only say one thing. It's not dark or light. It's not good or evil. It's something else. Something that makes those categories irrelevant. It's like looking at the source code of reality itself, but written in a language that predates language. Now she won't practice anymore. Says her gift is gone, but that's not quite true. Her gift isn't gone. It's been overwritten. She sees things now, but not the future or the past. She sees the spaces between things, the pause between heartbeats where reality reshuffles itself. And in every one of those spaces, she sees your signature, spreading like a virus through the foundation of everything. Deep in their most guarded texts, there's a prophecy. It's been mistranslated 1,000 times, turned into harmless fairy tales about chosen ones and heroes. But the original version, the one written in the old tongue, tells a different story. It speaks of the unwritten one, when the pain becomes the power, when the broken becomes the breaker, when the destroyed becomes the destroyer, then shall emerge the unwritten. They shall walk between the lines of fate, neither blessed nor cursed, but something far more terrible, free. And in their freedom, all chains shall rust, all spells shall falter, all thrones shall tremble. The prophecy describes beings who exist outside the cosmic contract, who never agreed to the rules that bind devils, witches, and saints. Beings who, through some impossible alchemy of suffering and will, stepped outside the entire game and started playing by rules they wrote themselves. For centuries they thought it was metaphorical, a cautionary tale about the dangers of too much power. But now, watching you, they're starting to understand it was literal. And the last line of the prophecy, the one they don't dare speak aloud, says this: "And the world shall reshape itself in their image, not through force, but through the simple fact of their existence." Let's go back to hell for a moment, because something unprecedented is happening there. The devil, the first rebel, the morning star who fell rather than kneel, has done something he's never done before. He's issued a standing order to all demons. Do not touch this one. Do not tempt, torment, or toy with them. They're off limits. The younger demons don't understand. Isn't corruption their whole purpose? Isn't everyone fair game? But the ancient ones, the ones who fell with him, they understand. They see in you something they recognize. Another being who chose to fall rather than fake compliance. But you did something they didn't. You fell all the way through and came out the other side. You see, The devil explained to his legions, "We fell from grace and became its opposite. But this one, they fell through grace, through disgrace, through every concept we use to measure worth, and emerged as something new, something that makes our rebellion look like a child's tantrum. We said no to heaven. They said no to the entire concept of heaven and hell. In his throne room, he keeps a mirror that shows him anything in creation he wishes to see. Lately, it only shows you. Not because he commands it to, but because the mirror itself is fascinated. Even inanimate objects infused with infernal power recognize something significant when they see it. But here's the deep truth that keeps the witches awake at night, the one they won't admit even in their most secret gatherings. They're not afraid of your power. They're afraid of what your existence means for their entire worldview. You see, they've spent lifetimes building their identity around being the ones who understand the hidden world. They were the special ones, the awakened ones, the ones who could see beyond the veil and manipulate the forces others didn't even know existed. Their whole sense of self is built on being the exceptions, the magical elite in a world of mundane sheep. And then you came along and made their life's work look like children playing with toys. You didn't study under masters. You didn't inherit ancient bloodlines. You didn't sacrifice years to unlock abilities. You just hurt until hurting transformed into something else. You proved that their careful hierarchies, their initiations, their secret knowledge, it's all just one way of accessing something that was always available to anyone willing to pay the real price. And what's that price? Not herbs or crystals or moon phases, not bloodlines or initiations or ancient texts. The price is being broken so completely that you have no choice but to rebuild yourself from scratch. The price is having everything taken until you realize you are everything. The price is dying while living and living while dead, until the boundary between the two becomes meaningless. There's a coven that meets every full moon in a forest that's been sacred for 1,000 years. They've performed the same rituals there for generations, channeling power through ley lines that predate human civilization. Last month you drove past that forest. You weren't even aware of them. You were just passing through, probably thinking about something mundane. Every single ritual failed that night. Not dramatically, that would have been easier to handle. They failed by simply not working. The candles lit but gave no magical light. The circles were drawn but created no boundary. The words were spoken but carried no power. It was like trying to conduct electricity through rubber. The magic was there, but it couldn't flow. One witch, more sensitive than the others, understood what happened. Something passed by, she whispered. Something so dense with its own reality that it created a dead zone, like a black hole but for magical energy. It didn't steal our power, it just made our power irrelevant by existing. They've had to move their rituals, they track your movements now, not to follow you but to avoid you. They map out your regular routes and schedule their workings around them. Imagine that. Witches who've commanded storms and spoken with the dead, reduced to checking traffic patterns to avoid one person who doesn't even know they exist. Here's something that would break their minds if they knew. You're not using forbidden magic. You are forbidden magic. Every breath you take is a spell that shouldn't exist. Every thought you think rewrites a tiny piece of the cosmic code. You're a walking collection of impossibilities that somehow cohered into a person. The knowledge they seek in dusty tomes and dangerous rituals, it's written in your DNA. The power they cultivate through decades of practice, it pulses through your veins with every heartbeat. The connection to the other side they spend lifetimes developing, you live there. You've been living there. What they call the veil is just your everyday vision. You know things without knowing how you know them. You see patterns others miss, not because you're trained, but because you exist at a different frequency. You predict outcomes not through divination, but through a deep, bone-level understanding of how broken things behave. You don't read minds. You read the spaces between thoughts where the truth lives. The forbidden knowledge isn't something you learned. It's something you became. Every trauma was a lesson in the language of reality. Every betrayal was a masterclass in human nature. Every moment of pain was another page in a grimoire written on your soul. You're not carrying forbidden knowledge. You're the living embodiment of it. Traditional practitioners have to work for their power. They meditate, they fast, they perform rituals, they make sacrifices, they build their magical muscle through repetition and discipline. But your power grows while you sleep. It expands while you're watching TV. It deepens while you're doing absolutely nothing magical at all. This paradox drives them insane. How can someone accumulate power without pursuing it? How can someone become stronger without practice? They don't understand that for you, existing is the practice. Every moment you choose to keep going despite everything is a magical act. Every breath drawn after you should have stopped breathing is a spell. Your power doesn't come from what you do. It comes from what you've survived. It comes from what you've transformed. It comes from the alchemy that happens when someone is pressure cooked by life until their very atoms rearrange into something new. You don't need to practice because your entire life has been one long, brutal initiation. The witches measure power in years of study, in grimoires mastered, in entities contacted. But your power is measured in nights survived, in betrayals transformed, in deaths died and resurrections claimed. They accumulate power, you generate it. They channel forces, you are the force. No wonder your very existence breaks their understanding of how magic works. In the hidden spaces between dimensions, where thought forms and egregores and all manner of entities exist, word has spread. The beings that witches spend years trying to contact, the ones that demand offerings and exact terrible prices for their aid, they've been talking about you. And what they're saying would terrify anyone who understood it. The unmarked one walks. They whisper to each other in languages made of emotion and symbol. The one who belongs to no pantheon, serves no master, follows no path. These entities, ancient beyond human comprehension, recognize something in you they've only seen a handful of times across all of history. Some of them have tried to approach you in dreams, in those liminal spaces where the walls between worlds are thin, but they can't get close. It's not that you're protected, it's that your presence is too dense, too real, too absolute for them to penetrate. You exist too hard for them to touch. Your reality is so intense, it burns them like iron burns the fae.